All right, so this is our first episode of Unforgotten. We're starting off with women's lacrosse. I'm with Andie, Aldave, and Bridget Deehan, who had their season cut short. You guys are 7-0, second in the country, having one of the best seasons in the history of Notre Dame women's lacrosse. The place I want to start with you guys is when you found out the season had been canceled. I know you guys were on the road. You had just beat Vanderbilt pretty handily, and you were about to head to North Carolina for a huge matchup. So talk me through, I'll start with you, Bridget, just the experience of being on the road and when you first found out that your season was going to be cut short.
Yeah, after we played Vandy, obviously we're all excited about that win, but then we're excited to start talking about UNC, something like we always mark on our calendars. And, news kind of started fluttering in about the Ivy League, and there were kind of murmurs about the Patriot League. And I don't know, I'm a pretty big optimist, so I tried to ignore it, but it got really hard to ignore. But our coaches were very reassuring before we got final word, and they were like, everyone's advocating for us. So we went into conference room and did our UNC scout, and I think that finally lit everyone's mind to rest, that we're like, okay, we're good, this game's going to go through. And everyone got really excited for whatever their matchup was and our game plan, and we all felt super confident and kind of jazzed to just get to Chapel Hill. And then we left the conference room to grab our bags and stuff to go do some ice baths and stuff at Vanderbilt, and our coach called us back in and told us that ACC had suspended the season indefinitely. And then so we all kind of just sat there, and obviously a lot of emotions in the room. I remember McKenna Pearsall was the first one to step up and speak, being a fifth year and a captain on our team, just saying how much this team meant to her. And then we later got the word that NCAA had canceled all spring championships. So we just kind of took advantage of the fact that we were all together. It wasn't the case for all teams. Some people were scattered around campus if they were home. So I guess that was a blessing in disguise that we were all together in that room to kind of take on this news together, because obviously it wasn't easy to hear.
Was it the same experience for you, Andie?
Yeah, I would say a lot of the same feelings, same thing. The room, I think, was really nothing I've ever been a part of before. I think when it was announced, you could probably hear a pin drop, and then from there it was just a flood of emotions. Just thinking about one, we don't get to play our game on Sunday, and then two, we don't get to play the rest of our season, and kind of strive for that goal that you always do to get to Memorial Day weekend and get a chance to win the national championship. So I think the fact that that was just immediately stripped from us, as well as many other student athletes around the country, was just really heartbreaking and kind of just very difficult to wrap your head around. Living in an unprecedented time like this, it's just very surreal, and I think for a lot of us it hasn't even hit yet, and I can't even imagine seniors and fifth years. It's probably even harder for them.
You talked about the room and how it was unlike any room you'd been in before. You guys have been in locker rooms at the end of seasons, right? Every season comes to an end, usually with except for the champion, with a loss, and it's just kind of a sense of, that kind of similar vibe. But how was this different? You said it's unlike anything you've been in. What was the biggest difference between the end of a season locker room and this unique kind of premature ended season?
Yeah, I think somebody jokingly called it purgatory right away. That specific room.
Yeah.
We were in one of those hotel ballrooms that
right.
We had a mini screen come down for our scout at the time, but I don't know, I guess it was just for 5 minutes before that we were doing scout for the number one team in the country, and now Chris is standing up there saying we're gonna find the first flight home tomorrow morning, pack your bags, we're gonna go back to South Bend. And then we kind of had our final season wrap up in our own locker room, which I think was even weirder because our director of ops stood up and was telling us all the things we needed to return, and our strength and conditioning coach talked about a workout plan for home to stay in shape. It was so bizarre, and for it to happen so early, Because I know last year when we had that, after we lost to Northwestern in the NCAAs, like it was kind of like, obviously it was over, school had been over. So yeah, unlike anything I've ever been a part of before.
Yeah, like the last 2 years when our seasons have ended, it's been, as you said, if you're not the champion, it's because of a loss. And that's just far easier to reconcile. You can like reflect on your last game and it's, quantifiable. You lost the game and that's how your season ends. But I had to like keep reminding myself, like the days following, like we did not lose, is just like, as Andie was saying, it's really hard to wrap your head around the entire thing and kind of just how abrupt it was. Like literally 5 minutes we're scouting and everyone's getting so excited to like move on to our next opponent and like one of the biggest one that we would have thus far in the season. And just like the complete change of events that can come from a message on our coach's phone. It's crazy.
I think it's super interesting what you guys are talking about, because I remember that week, working at Fighting Irish Media, we're in contact with all kinds of people that are involved with the teams. And like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it was business as usual. People heard a lot of stuff that might be happening, but they weren't sure. And so there was a tendency, like you had to prepare like you were going to keep going about the season. But I had to be surreal for you guys. Like you're preparing at 1 minute and 5 minutes later, it's all over. It is crazy. Like you're saying, when you go into that last game, you at least expect, even if you're hoping to win, it could end today. But You probably didn't wake up on Thursday thinking it might end today. So that's nuts.
Yeah.
How much do you think, the game on, I think it was scheduled for Saturday or Sunday, just that weekend against North Carolina, was going to be 1 versus 2. I know our office, like we were fired up. We were like, this is going to be awesome. We had a watch party scheduled to watch. It's, for you, Bridget, in your first year as the starter, I'll start with you because it's kind of a coming out season for you. How much more did it sting and how much more frustrating was it? You guys were on the verge of this huge matchup that you never even got the chance to play.
Yeah, I think at least from, as you said, like my first season as a starter, there was like a lot of proving to be done as our program. And I think we did that with how we came out in the season, starting 7-0, our big win over Northwestern, and then proving to myself what I'm capable of for a full 60 minutes of lacrosse. I mean, I had played a good amount my first 2 years, but I never got into a game 0-0. Like I would go in if we were in a deficit and we needed to try something different, or if we had a lead and just getting everyone minutes. But definitely an exciting opportunity. I've never played against UNC, still haven't been on the field against them going into my senior year, which is weird to think about. But yeah, it's definitely just a matchup that we were waiting for all year. And then when we were starting to hear rumors from other conferences, we thought, well, they'll let us play out this weekend.
Right.
And then people were saying, so this will be the national championship. I remember being in an elevator. I'm like, we don't have to say this is the national championship, putting more pressure on it than we had. But I think more than anything, we'd have loved to play out that last game because, I think, it would have been a battle and an instant classic. And bias over here, but I'm confident would have been an Irish win. So we were really confident going into it and really looking forward to it.
Andie, you were on our podcast Podward with your teammate Kelly before the season. I remember talking to you guys. It was probably right before winter break. And I remember just how confident you guys were. I mean, you were talking about the culture you guys have built in your time here. I walked away from that interview so impressed with like, wow, people can look you in the eye sometimes and tell you you're going to win a national championship and you don't really believe them. And I walked out of that room. I was like, well, I don't know if they're going to do it, but I believe that they really think they're going to do it. So it had to even, not just the North Carolina stuff, but you guys were on a mission this year, and to come up or to have it stop the way it did had to just make it that much more frustrating, right?
Yeah, I think I definitely told you. I was like, we're going to win a national championship this year.
I think it's in there. Yeah, I think it's in the interview.
That's how confident I was before the season, and still I am. Like, I think you're right. It does make it 10 times harder when you think about, the culture we built, the team we had. It'll never be the same. So I think that's one of the hardest things for me right now, just trying to accept that it'll never be the same because we had such an incredible group from top down, no matter what your role was. And it stemmed from our culture that we worked daily on. And it was hard. Like we had really hard conversations with one another, but it only helped our play on the field, and we built stronger relationships off the field. So I think, we, like Bridget said, we really wanted to play out the weekend because I think, the rankings and media, whatever, can talk about how it was 1v2, but, we always say like we play like we're number one and we train like it too. So yeah, we were really confident going into that weekend, despite like what the media said about us or what North Carolina what their rankings were at the time. So yeah, like Bridget said, I'm a little biased as well that it was going to be an Irish win. But yeah, I mean, I think it was going to be such a great matchup. I mean, two respectable programs in the ACC. I feel like that was really going to be our coming out story of the season, and just to show the world what we were made of and why we deserve to be at Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
It's been 2 weeks since the announcement, right? That we're recording this on Thursday, the 25th, and the season, I think, or the championships were canceled on the 11th. You guys said it's still kind of surreal, but I guess just how have you been processing this? I'll start with you, Bridget. Like, what have you been doing over the course of the last 2 weeks to kind of come to grips with this? And is there been anything, like any mindset that you've adopted that's maybe helped you get through this? Like, what have the last 2 weeks been like, just emotionally and mentally, as you've kind of tried to adjust to this reality?
One of the first things I did after packing up my room to head home, like sat down my futon in my dorm and I looked up how many days there were till Memorial Day 2021. So it's 440 at that point. So it feels like so far away. But reminding myself that this isn't just our team going through this, and then it's every spring student athlete. Then beyond that, the world's kind of at a standstill.
Yeah.
So knowing that everyone's adjusting to these times, and we're not the only victims in it, but I've watched all of our games over again.
Nice.
So that's been, that's been some therapy for me. And then I'm in SAC, and this year one of our biggest things was to create like cross team relationships. So one thing that's been nice like that I've been doing, and I know some other players on other teams been doing, like reaching out to each other, like other spring athletes, like some friends on the tennis team, and like going back and forth. So sorry about your season, same to you. And just knowing that goes beyond our team. And again, like as Andie said, like heartbroken for the seniors and the fifth years. And I'm just so thankful that this isn't my senior year, and just constantly reminding myself of that.
What about you, Andie?
Yeah, I would have to say I've done my fair share in ESPN replays.
Yeah.
ACC Network. Make sure you call your cable provider and subscribe.
Yeah.
Make sure you have it.
My sister was like, it was late last night or 2 nights ago, and she was like, we were just laying there, and she like all of a sudden like pulled up like the Apple TV like AirPlay from her phone, and we stayed up watching the BC game till like 1 in the morning. I mean, it's just, she knows it helps me cope as well. But I would agree with Bridget. I think it's been like the whole virtual schooling part, like despite that, it's nice to see some of our classmates, like, and people on our team in classes. Like I was telling my sister, I like have obviously kept in touch with my class the most out of everyone, but I have a couple classes with some seniors, like freshmen, and I joined the Zoom like accidentally like early, and it was me and Haley Schultz, a senior, and we both got on there, like didn't even realize the professor was in the room, and we both were like, oh my God. Just like, I'm like, I would do that with her in person, but I texted her like later on in the class. I was like, oh my God, it was so good to see your face. Like, I miss you so much. Like, you have no idea. So just like little things like that has definitely helped like me cope with the fact that we're all home with our families and not with each other, living our usual daily lives.
What has that process been like, going back home and living with your families? Before we started, Bridget, you told me you're one of 5, so you've got a pretty full house now. I mean, I would say 2 weeks ago, nobody was planning for this.
No.
Parents and families alike. So what's that adjustment period been like? Andie talked about the online schooling. I mean, how has that process been for you guys?
The first week when we didn't have school really felt like some weird break in the middle. And again, like part of that surrealism of the whole situation. But then like last Sunday when I started kind of like opening my agenda, like prepping stuff for the week for school, like flipping through, and like I've marked for this Saturday, it says beat Cuse at noon. And it was like just kind of stuff like that. Then I'd kind of get in like a little bit of a worse mood. So I don't know if the most pleasant Bridget to be around right now for my whole family, but I'm trying my best. My little sister plays lacrosse too. She plays at Furman University, and she's a freshman. So she and I are both going through the same thing, kind of dealing with the loss of a season, and just kind of been talking through it a lot. And we go and play tennis and just try to kind of get our minds off of it, get some of our competitive like urges out, I guess, on the tennis court. But it's definitely been an adjustment. And my mom will say it's so weird staying at the dinner table because she went from being an empty nester, all of a sudden having all 5 back, cooking for all 5. And my dad travels a lot for work, but he's obviously not now. So it's very different, but I guess we'll just have to enjoy it. The 7 of us probably only get together for Christmas with us playing and being at school. So silver lining of it all.
What about you, Andie?
Yeah, I would say this is probably the first time in a while besides like Christmas. I have 2 older sisters. One is still in New York, but my other sister's here. This is the first time I've like been home with her for this long since like I was a sophomore in high school. So she's taking classes. She's in nursing school, but it's definitely been really fun to have her here. She's definitely, like Bridget said, like obviously we're in a little different position. She played lacrosse at Florida, so was a student athlete and understands that, but she's definitely been helping like boost my mood and, take my mind off of it, and has been the best. And obviously we moved recently, so we're in a smaller apartment in Baltimore, so that's been funny and fun to try to figure out where our spaces are. But we're doing it and we're having fun, and like Bridget said, we're just kind of cherishing it and kind of the silver lining it all, being together when we usually aren't.
It has been neat to see just nationwide and even globally how in this really unfortunate time people are finding ways to make the most of it. You see it on social media with whatever challenges or games they're doing. One thing I want to make sure we do with this podcast for you guys and other teams that had their seasons cut short is make sure we highlight some of the big moments throughout the season that you did have. Obviously undefeated, best ranking to end a season in program history. The BC game is one that we produced at FIM. We got to see up close and personal. And that was, to me, BC's always so good in women's lacrosse. The way you guys beat them, that stood out for me as like a statement victory. But for you guys, what are the memories that obviously you're going to remember this season, for the unfortunate ending, but there's still, I think, plenty you guys can be proud of and think back fondly to. What are those memories that you guys are going to look back on and really cherish?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is our win over Northwestern. I mean, for 33 out of 35 members of our team, that was our first time beating them in fall ball and any spring matchup. And I think for us that, like, we all had so much belief going into that game, then walking away from it with that huge win and how we won it, and it was definitely a battle. We were fearless the rest of the way, like through season. I think that's what just sparked our confidence. And like once that we had that win, there was no looking back. And same with BC, again, 33 out of 35. That was our first win against them. And they're just one of the most reputable programs of this era of lacrosse that we've grown up to watch. So it definitely stands out as just such a big win.
Yeah, I would say mine was probably definitely Northwestern, and maybe for a couple different reasons. One, I think the environment that we were playing in was really cool. We were in their new like indoor facility, I've watched other teams play there, but you don't realize like what else is going on in the indoor facility. They have like a huge DJ setup, and it is so loud you can't even hear
deafening. Yeah.
In warm-ups. So we like came out for warm-ups and we're like, oh my god, and like the place was packed. I'm pretty sure it was sold out. Like my sister and family came to the game, and I think they were standing.
It was reported over like 1,200. That's like huge for us. Yeah.
So that was really awesome, to just be in that type of environment. So to be in that atmosphere so close to home, that felt like kind of a home game for us, was really cool. And then secondly, like when we started to build a lead and then eventually kind of had it in the bag, just like silencing the crowd was like so awesome. And I feel like for us, it was like such a confidence booster. And just like at the end of the game, we all like ran over, and we had a huge like fan section of family and friends, and we kind of ran over there, gave them hugs, and then we all sang the alma mater together, like coaches included, and all the parents were together, and everyone was singing the song. Like probably one of my top 5 moments of being on this team and games. It was really incredible. And like, I think from there, everyone just knew like we were doing something special and something a team that has never done it before.
So something you mentioned that happened towards the end of the year, or what, right when it stopped, was that you got like workout plans. They were going to send home workout plans. To me, you know, the spring sports got hosed from 2 standpoints. One, the season got cut short, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a fall sport, theoretically, if assuming they're going to be back on time, there's plenty of training they can be doing right now in the spring to get ready. But like you said, Bridget, it's 426 days until the next national championship game for women's lacrosse. So I guess the first part of this is, what have you been doing? What kind of training have you been doing, if any? And B, like, how tough is it to get motivated to train for a season that's so far in the distance that, like, if it was me, I'll be honest, like, I'd be laying low. I'd be like, okay, I got nothing to work for right now. And if that's what you're doing, that's fine. I'm not going to judge you at all. I'm just curious, like, what's that process been like the last couple of weeks, trying to find ways to work out, if at all, and like even finding the motivation, because the season, like you said, is so far away.
Yeah, I don't know if I could motivate myself to get into like a big on the line sprint workout right now without everyone next to me. But I've been running a lot, which is very unusual for me to go on long distance runs. But I think I finally have enough to think about and occupy my mind while I'm running. So that's one benefit of it. But definitely not like training anymore as if we were in season, just because you can't sustain that kind of fitness all the way through 426 more days. So I'm sure when when we ride out the rest of what would have been season, come summer training is when it kind of picks up. So we're ready for fall ball when it comes. But the motivation definitely is nowhere near the same when we had such a tangible goal in our crosshairs, and knowing how far away it is. Right now, it's kind of just more exercising for ourselves and for our sanity, more so than any like fitness or being in a certain shape goal. And then I think once like everything calms down and like a high school field's open back up, I can't wait to play again. But only some light passing in the yard, but haven't taken any shots in my free time the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, can't say I have either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think same thing. Like, obviously, we're all in a similar situation. Like, gyms are closed. There's not much motivation flying around in this house. But yeah, like Bridget said, it's like, as a student athlete, you're doing it every day. So it almost feels like a normal part of your day to go for a run or to do some sort of athletic activity. So definitely have like tried to put that in every day for, yes, my own sanity, because I think I would go crazy without it. But yeah, I think it was weird, like packing up my stick bag to bring home, because was like, what am I going to do with this thing until fall ball? Like, but I think that's been hard. Like, I've definitely like played a little wall ball and stuff like that, but just like, it almost makes me even more sad when I do it, because I'm just like, it brings back like just wishful hoping and a lot of stuff that, you know, didn't end up happening. So yeah, it's hard to think about how long we have until we start up again, but you know, hopefully the motivation will return come summer.
Sorry that I brought that up.
No worries.
One of the last questions I have here is just kind of about, and you guys have both alluded to it a little bit, but the Notre Dame family, and specifically, you know, other student athletes. You mentioned you're not the only ones going through it. You know, it's not just Notre Dame. It's not just women's lacrosse. It's a ton of people. So maybe, and I'll start with Bridget again. Is there someone or some example in the last couple of weeks where someone in the women's lacrosse community or someone in the Notre Dame community really maybe helped you just kind of handle all this emotionally? Or is there an example that you have where, you know, in the last 2 weeks, it really helped you just get through, whether it's processing things or just managing your emotions or trying to just wrap your head around what's going on?
Yeah, I think immediately comes to mind is our alumni. I mean, all season they were so supportive, and they would like thank us for giving them something to be excited about. But they definitely fueled us in so many ways. And we had a team dinner when we got back to South Bend, and Chris had a compilation of all the notes that had been sent her way from various alumni, like ranging all the way back from like early 2000s, and just talking about how much people had believed in us this year. And then when we were still on campus, but after season had been canceled, I had FaceTime with one of my old teammates, Nikki Ortega. She graduated last year. And it was actually on Sunday, and her little sister is Jamie Ortega, who's UNC's leading attacker. And so it was funny. She was in the room, and we were kind of going back and forth. She's like, I think we're supposed to be, dwindling down in the first half right about now. I'm like, I think you're right. But so it's definitely interesting. I think it was funny just to be talking to a UNC player who we know just from being sisters, one of our teammates, almost made us feel better. It's like we're not the only people that lost on this. Like they were just as much looking forward to that matchup as us. And then, of course, talking to Nikki made me feel so much better. And she was just talking about how she thinks that our team could just do it again. How we though it seems so far away, we're returning such great strength, and the seniors and fifth years have just created such a great path for us and they've prepared us for what's down the road. And for that, we're super grateful. And like taking someone like Nikki Ortega reminding me of that has been really helpful for me.
Yeah, I was going to say alumni as well, but I'll probably go with just my team in general. I think we, like Bridget said earlier on in the podcast, we were very fortunate to have a couple days together before we all went home. And I think, despite how brutal the bus ride and the plane ride from Nashville to South Bend was, we truly made the best of it. I've never been with a group of people that made something like so terrible and awful, like kind of feels like your life is crumbling into pieces, a place where I can actually like genuinely laugh and, smile and make it seem so normal, even though that sounds like weird to say. And then once we got back to South Bend, I never wanted to leave. I think that was kind of the worst part. We were all kind of just waiting for the first person to leave and kind of rip the Band-Aid off and start the goodbyes. But they made it so worth it. And, they always do. That's why we do it every day. So just being able to spend a full 24 hours with your teammates, without any school or lacrosse, and just being there for each other and just sharing your emotions and how you're going to get through that together. Bridget is one of my best friends, and I think we've done an incredible job supporting each other, and they're people I know I can lean on for the rest of my life. So that's definitely gotten me through and has been such a huge part of who I think the Notre Dame family is and means to everyone.
Well, guys, I appreciate you taking some time to talk about what was obviously a really difficult end of the season. I think it's going to help a lot of other student athletes who are going through the same thing, not just at Notre Dame, but across the country, kind of hear what you guys went through. I know that I'm sure they are going through a lot of the same things. I'll tell you that as someone that works at Notre Dame, when it all went down, the first team that I thought of and a lot of other people that I work with thought of was women's lacrosse, just because of the exceptional season you guys were having. I'm not going to play favorites and say we should feel worse for one team more than the other, but there was definitely a lot of excitement about what you guys were doing. A lot of people are proud of what you guys accomplished, and I think they're still proud, and you guys should still be proud. So, a weird end to the season, but plenty to hang your hat on. And I know we're excited for you guys to get back on the field soon. So thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.